this week, Dylann Roof, the man who shot and killed 9 black individuals in a church in Charleston, South Carolina, was convicted of murdering them and also convicted of hate crimes. Now that that verdict has been read, we have more and more details about what occurred during the shooting and the type of testimony the jury heard during the case. Now, what I'm about to read to you guys is graphic. I also have some pieces of his manifesto that I think are relevant to this story, so I'm going to read that as well. So I just want to give you guys that warning. Now, there was a woman by the name of Felicia Sanders who did not die as a result of him attacking these people. She was one of the survivors. And apparently, when Sanders' wounded 26-year-old son asked Roof why he was doing this, Sheppard heard him reply, I have to, you're raping our women and taking over the nation. Roof then allegedly shot Tywanza Sanders again, killing him. Okay, and then there was another woman who testified during the case who saw what happened. She was also victimized by the shooting. Polly Sheppard is her name, and she was the final witness for the prosecution in a week-long case in which Roof, who was convicted with 33 federal counts, including hate crimes, faces the death penalty. After Sheppard's testimony, the defense actually rested their case without calling a single witness, unable to persuade a judge to allow the testimony of 2 mental health experts. Now, he will be sentenced next month. He faces either the death penalty or life in prison without the possibility of parole. But in the sentencing, Roof has decided that he wants to represent himself, which the judge advised him against. But at this point, who cares what he does?
Yeah. So as we talked about before, I'm against the death penalty, but having him rot in prison is for the rest of his life is pretty good justice. I'm glad that finally we have a little bit of justice. Charleston's the same place where Slager got to shoot Walter Scott and in the back and get away with it. So at least Roof is not getting away with it here. You know, when you read that quote, Anna, about, oh, you're raping our woman, et cetera, isn't it amazing? They started that propaganda right after the Civil War. So as soon as black men were free, they started saying, oh, they're raping our women. Now, which is very ironic because slavery was filled with white plantation owners raping African-American women. So they turned it around immediately as if it's true. At the time, African-Americans have no power at all. They just got freed. They have no power, and let alone the lynchings, et cetera. And then Birth of a Nation, the first long feature film, had a character of a white guy in blackface going around raping white women. And it is through all of these generations. So some people say, oh, history is not important. Why are you guys talking about slavery or civil rights? That was such a long time ago. Look at that propaganda that came all the way down and took those people's 9 folks' lives in that church because he got it in his head that black people rape white women and I got to go kill them all.
And how unhinged that is, even from that logic, right? That you would go to a church if you're looking for these so-called rapists or people who are perpetrators of sexual assault to go then to a church where people will invite you in, right, with open arms and then to murder them, right? That's including women, right? So that logic, the logic of white supremacy is illogical, right? So what he's saying in his manifesto, it doesn't connect to any kind of reasoning that helps us understand this outside of he's a white supremacist, right? So
that's it.
I see him as a pawn. Like, for some reason, he doesn't convince me to be sharp enough to be anything other than, I believe they got in his head. I think that he is a pawn in the game. I'm really mad at the haircut. Really mad at the haircut. The haircut really threw me off because I was like, well, is this guy special? Look at the haircut. Nice. Like, how is somebody with this haircut?
On it.
Yeah, he got bangs and it's a soup bowl. I don't know. I'm not feeling it. But I just think that it just seemed like they really wanted to plant some deep stuff on this guy. And I know I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I just don't buy that he's as profound as we'd like to make him. I think that somebody just twisted the little thing, and he went out there and did the devil's work. And I do think that he should rot in prison, and you know, because it's gonna be a tough run for him. Because I don't think he has a crew.
That's a good
Yeah,
point.
well, no, but there are a lot of neo-Nazis in prison, so they who knows? Maybe they'll take him in. But so here's the part I really agree with you on, Ida. It's that this guy's obviously unbalanced, right? And there's a lot of people in the country who are not very bright or unbalanced or have mental issues, etc. And most of them are harmless and of course, right, and get treatment and have family members who love them, etc. But some are isolated and then wind up in this situation, right? And so propaganda matters.
Yeah.
So when you think you're doing some things like you're writing your tweets and your blogs and like, oh yeah, black men are dangerous, whatever. I mean, I see it on social media nonstop, right? Fake crime statistics, and or talking about how black men are in prison more without explaining the context of white men and black men, for example, with marijuana, smoke the same exact amount of marijuana, but black men get arrested 4 times more. But they don't put that. They write the other propaganda. But what you're not understanding is you're winding some people up.
Yeah.
It's not everybody out there is rational. There's Dylann Roofs out there.
So let me jump in because I think that language and rhetoric does matter. And, I read his entire manifesto and it was actually chilling because the way he wrote it and the claims that he made were similar to what we see in social media on a regular basis. And so he starts his manifesto off by talking about the Trayvon Martin case and how that sparked an interest in him. So he started doing research and he wanted to look into issues involving black on white murder. That's the way he referred to it. And so he came across the Council of Conservative Citizens. He mentions that in his manifesto. And he was like, after that, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I took it upon myself to save white America from blacks destroying everything. I want to read to you from his manifesto. He says things like, I have no choice. I am not in the position to alone go into the ghetto and fight. I choose Charleston because it is most historic city in my state and at one time had the highest ratio of blacks and whites in the country. We have no skinheads, no real KKK, no one doing anything but talking on the internet. Well, someone has to have the bravery to take it to the real world, and I guess that has to be me. And then let me give you another example of something that stood out to me, and it's just hideous. He says, say you were to witness a dog being beat by a man. You are almost surely going to feel very sorry for that dog. But then you say you were to witness a dog biting a man. You will most likely not feel the same pity you felt for the dog, for the man. Why? Because dogs are lower than men. So he compares that to basically black people being lesser than white people, and we feel bad when black people are victimized because we know that they're lesser than white people, and so that's why we have that empathy for them. And we don't have the same empathy for white people.
And think about why he says that, because he's on the lowest rung of society, right? It's not like this guy is, running Goldman Sachs or a brain surgeon, although there's a couple of those guys in the Trump cabinet. Anyway, so he's not doing that well. And so he thinks, well, how do I feel better about myself?
Absolutely.
I say that these folks, not based on merit, but based on me arbitrarily saying they're lower than me, I'll get to call them dogs, and I'll feel much better about myself. Because if I compare on merit, I'm not going to do well, right? So I got to then say, then there's a different reason why people are lower than me. And look at the first quote that Anna read you, right? Well, I can't go to the ghetto. I mean, so I've got to do something brave and go where there's defenseless people and go to a church and shoot them up and kill them when they can't defend themselves. I don't know if you understand the definition of brave, but you're pretty much the exact opposite.
Yeah.
He's not, after that he was like, and I want a Whopper.
And
Like,
that's the thing that kills
like,
me, that he went to Burger King,
Yeah,
right?
no
He
problem.
said he wanted a Whopper and they gave it to him.
Burger King, which is also, just wrapped up in just racial narratives. The fact that most people who commit mass crimes, right, are either shot and killed by the police or they commit suicide. The fact that he was actually apprehended, fed, and taken care of, despite this obvious hate crime, just says a lot about racial narratives and how they operate in terms of policing, and who's considered a victim in these particular instances. So
He said that he was shocked that cops did not apprehend him coming out of the church. He said he was ready to die, and he thought there'd be a shootout with cops, but he was like, nope, didn't happen. I just walked on out, and then later they got him on a traffic stop, I believe. So now, look, there's a lot of different reasons why that might have happened. I don't know all the details of what the police reaction at that moment to that crime, and nobody's asking for the police to go shoot people at sight. What we're asking for is the opposite. So when you see a 12-year-old boy like Tamir Rice, don't shoot him in 2 seconds flat.
That's right.
Maybe he's got a toy gun. Maybe he doesn't mean any harm. Maybe he's a 12-year-old in a park. And so can we afford everyone some degree of latitude? If we're going to afford it to the terrorists like this guy, can we afford it to 12-year-old boys?
Thank you for saying terrorist, because we like to attribute that word to brown people from the Middle East.
Right.
And we don't like to use that word domestically. And that was an act of terror. And Sandy Hook was an act of terror. And we have to be able to use the language that is a reflection of fairness, because it's getting old, folks. It's getting really, really old.
The Young Turks isn't just us, it's also you guys. You make this show possible, and we want to thank you for it, and we want to grow together. We want to be too strong. TYTnetwork.com/join. Let's do it.